Hello, buddy. All right. Welcome to the Mikestand. Today is Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. So that means we're, of course, at the hump day, getting over the hump. Hope everybody's having a good week thus far. Um, as we wait for more people to show up before we get started here. Um, so I was watching, of course, some cartoons earlier, and one of the cartoons I was watching was one of the old Screen Songs cartoons from Fleischer Studios. Actually, it was quite punny. It had a lot of puns in it. The cartoon was called Love Thy Neighbor. It was now the screen. What they did with the Screen Songs that they bring in. It actually bring in some singers from that time period. They were popular radio singers at the time. On this particular case, they brought in somebody called uh, Mary. I think her name was Mary Small. She was known as the little girl with the big voice. As she was only like 11 or 12 years old, but yet when you hear her sing, you know, she sound more like a grown woman, like an adult woman. She was um and of course they set it up before they got to her performance in the show, which was done live action, of course. Um, they made off with they made like a with kind of a new kind of a parody of the newsreels that they did back in those days. And you had places like like as in Ash, Kansas, or mouthwash. um, carpet tex. You know, So they had some pretty good puns in there. So see, we're just so as we get up to 3 minutes here. Of course, if you guys can, if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. I'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Let's see. So with that, now that we're at the 3 minute mark, let me talk about what's on tap for tonight. So I do have a couple of articles I'm going to go over. One from Bleeding Fool, one from Bounding into Comics. First article is talking about how now they're preparing for Dynamite comic distributors to go up for auction. As some of you know from when we reported on this about a few weeks back, Dynamite comic distributors went, basically filed for bankruptcy about a month or so ago. So now they're, of course, going up for auction. Several interested buyers, apparently. And then the other news story we're going to cover tonight, of course, is over on Bounding into Comics. There's some news coming out, I guess, involving, Akira Toriyama's possible involvement in the Dragon Ball Daima, anime. So, anyways, let me just go ahead and let me just do this real quick. So with that being said, after I do this, why don't we get in? Now we're coming up on the 5 minute mark here, so why don't we go ahead and get into the articles then? So let me just pull this up here. And of course, also will be, of course, after we get through the news stories, and we'll be doing, of course, the wrestling wrap up. getting caught up on what happened on last night's NXT, as well as going over what to look forward to on tonight's Dynamite, and then we'll wrap the show up with this day in each history. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started here then. All right, so here we go with the first story here. Several possible buyers emerge as Diamond Comic Distributors goes up for auction. Article by Chris Braley, published yesterday, 18th. So here we go. Diamond Comic Distributors, once the dominant force in comic book distribution, is set for a pivotal auction in March 2025. So basically in a couple weeks here. Following its Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing in January, this auction could reshape the comic book industry landscape, potentially leading to positive changes in the long run. The company's assets, including Diamond Comic Distributors, Diamond United Kingdom, Diamond Select Toys, Collectible Grading Authority, and Alliance Game Distributors, will be up for grabs. Universal Distribution LLC has already submitted a quote-unquote stalking horse bid of $39 million for Alliance Game Distributors, setting a minimum price for that division. Key dates for the auction process include March 19th is the bid deadline. So if you're interested in trying to buy it, you have until March 19th to do so. Your initial bids here, but of course, 39 million, that's quite a bit of cash. So March 24th, auction in New York. March 27th, court hearing. And April 10th, expected closing of transactions. So while Diamond's struggles have been evident since late 2019, with the loss of exclusive distribution agreements with major publishers like DC, Marvel, and Image Comics, this auction presents an opportunity for fresh leadership and innovative approaches in the industry. Potential breakup of Diamond's various divisions could lead to increased competition and specialization, potentially benefiting publishers, retailers, and ultimately comic book fans. Let's see if there's anybody in here. And again, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. And I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So with that being said here, the restructuring process has already attracted significant interest, with Raymond James, Diamond's investment banker, contacting over 110 parties. Of these, nearly 30 reviewed confidential information, and at least 6 indicated interest and are conducting site surveys. The level of engagement suggests that the comic book distribution landscape could see a revitalization with new players entering the market. Again, that whole idea of fresh eyes, fresh perspective, right? Kind of the idea there. Despite the uncertainty, Diamond says they remain committed to serving publishers, retailers, and fans throughout the restructuring process. The company has secured $41 million in debtor-in-possession financing to continue operations until the sale is complete. As the industry adapts to these changes, there's potential for more diverse and resilient distribution network to emerge. This transition, while challenging, could ultimately lead to a healthier comic book ecosystem with improved options for creators, publishers, and readers alike. Let's hope for a good outcome at next month's auction. The comic book industry could use a win right now. So basically, if you are interested in getting involved, you haven't, as it was stated in the article there, you have until March 19th to place a bid. So, but mind you, the minimum bid set already, I guess, is 39 million. So, all right. So that one went pretty fast. They all went pretty fast. And I won't stop and falter. Anyway. All right, so let's move on to the next, of course, the next story we have here. So this, of course, is the next story we're going to cover right now. And again, if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we get some more friendly people in here to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and we will, and I'll go ahead and I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, here's the second story that we're going to do tonight. So, Dragon Ball boss reveals Akira Toriyama did, quote, most of the work, unquote, for Dragon Ball Daima, confirms plans, quote, to expand, unquote, franchise. Article by Nerdigans Inc. published earlier today. So there's Vegeta and Super Saiyan 3 form right there. With the conclusion of Dragon Ball Daima fast approaching, current franchise head Akio Ioku has not only revealed the true extent of late series creator Akira Toriyama's involvement in its production, but also confirmed that Goku's latest adventure will be far from his last. The president of Capsule Corporation Tokyo, a holding company established prior to Toriyama's passing, meant to oversee production of Dragon Ball's non-manga media productions, Ioku opened up about the current state of the franchise during a recent Daima-centric interview given to the online Japanese news publication Montanweb. Speaking to the series production history, Ioku revealed that not only did development on Daima begin while work was still being done on the Dragon Ball Superheroes theatrical film, but also that he was originally meant to have his usual minimal amount of involvement in the anime series production, only choosing to jump on board after reading its initial draft. So basically, it sounds like whatever they wrote, Toriyama was into, I guess, before he passed on there. In brackets here, quote, of any Dragon Ball anime, unbracketed, he had been the most involved with Daima the most, unquote, said the Capsule Corp boss. Quote, I was thinking of having him take a look at it rather than having him make a full-length version so as not to put a burden on him. However, Mr. Toriyama became more and more enthusiastic about the idea, and in the end, I asked him to create most of its story, unquote. As a result, recalled Iyoku, the legendary mangaka ultimately, quote, wrote the entire story as well as drew most of the characters, unquote. So that's something. Maybe something in him was sparked, just prior to his passing. He decided, yeah, I think I'll do this one more time. This feels right. So, quote, for example, he drew everything from the character in the bar, in brackets, as seen in the series self-titled third episode, Daima, unbracketed, to the monsters that appear in various parts of the demon realm, the planes, and other mecha, unquote, he explained. Quote, I was most surprised by Warp Sama's design. I was like, are you serious? Only he could have come up with the idea of a goldfish like mecha um, that could travel to other universes, unquote. Yeah, well, I think whoever did Pokemon with the whole carp sub, Magikarp sub, um, kind of beat him to that. But anyways, quote, and then there is the worldview, unquote. He continued, quote, there are three demon worlds in the great demon world. Um, first one, the second one, and he thought about the shape and origin of each one. Um, there are almost fewer parts that he didn't do, unquote. There's something right there. Warp Sama there intercepted Goku in Dragon Ball Daima, episode 3 Daima. From there, Ioku was pressed on his feelings regarding the quote greatness unquote of Toriyama and his work, to which he affirmed, quote, the easiest way to understand it is through his drawings, unquote. Quote, I think everyone can see they are unique, unquote, he explained. Quote, from my experience working with him, I feel like his world is amazing. It is very difficult to create an original world. You have to ask yourself, what is this world like? What kind of characters will appear? It is amazing. In addition, he had a spirit of service which always surprised me, unquote. See if there's anybody in the chat. And again, feel free to comment and or ask questions if anything grabs your attention, guys. Quote, I took a lot of time to work on it since we first talked about 6 years ago, unquote, he concluded, tempting to assure fans of him and his team's dedication to honoring Toriyama's creative intent. Quote, we didn't decide on a broadcast date from the beginning, and we didn't think about when and how we would do it. Um, there were so many elements that I had to rearrange, expand, and rework from them over and over again to make it right, unquote. And though Daima may be coming to an undoubtedly explosive ending in a little over a week and a half, Yoku informed Monton Web that whatever fate may befall Earth's defenders at the finish line, it would not mark the end of their stories, as he and the team at Capsule Corp are already hard at work producing ever more pieces of Dragon Ball media. Quote, animation and games are not created so quickly and it takes time, unquote, said the company president. Quote, we are trying to develop them well while preparing for them. We would like to expand further, unquote. In parentheses here, while fans may find it curious that Ioku made no specific mention of the Dragon Ball Super manga's future, this is likely due to the fact that its production rights are currently in dispute between Capsule Corp and series publisher Shueisha, thus leaving it entirely unknown as to who will oversee it going forward. And I think they meant to have a secondary. At current, Dragon Ball Daima is set to bring um, its Demon Realm outing to a close when its final episode airs on February 28th. So yeah, about a week and a half away. Like 9 days away here. Oh, there we go with that one. Let's see now. All right, so those are the two stories I had initially chose. They both went kind of quickly a bit. So let's see. We can see what else is going on here. All right, so we'll head over to. Oh, here. Let me do this while I look to see if there's anything else we can. And again, if anything that we've talked about grabbed your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer those questions best of my ability. So, anyway, let me just see if anything else has come up that might be of some interest. Because what we've been finding, of course, is even after I pick the initial story, a lot of times stuff pops up later. Usually around this time. Nothing there. Nothing really there. Nothing. And do you feel? I don't think there's anything here. Yeah, I don't know. Nothing there. All right. So yes, I think we've pretty much exhausted all the stories. And I haven't seen anything new on the indie comic showcase front. So my guess is unless he posted sometime tonight or even early tomorrow morning, I don't think there's going to be a new indie comic showcase from Bleeding Full. Actually, let me try one other site here. Oh, that really. And nothing really here either. One more time around the bend. Mm-hmm. Just trying to check and see what else it might be here. Gummy bears bouncing here and there and everywhere. Find adventure that's beyond compare. They are the gummy bears. They are the gummy bears. The GoBots, the GoBots. Do 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 do. The GoBots. Do 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 do. Bum bum ba dum bum bum ba da. The GoBots. Tellyhawk. Wings of steel, wings of silver, nerves of steel. Silver hawks, partly metal, partly real. Silver hawks, flowing through the highways of the heavens in their lives. Silver hawks, rainbow in the night. Yeah, so anyways, alright, so yeah, I can't seem to find much, so I think I will move on to the wrestling wrap up here and go back to last night's NXT. Look over that first, and then we'll look ahead to tonight's AEW. Tonight's Dynamite, of course, will have AEW coming off of its um, Grand Slam event. But before we get to that, of course, let's go ahead and look over what went down on last night's NXT. So, in the opening match on last night's NXT, Carmen Petrovich, with Ashante Adonis in her corner, defeated Jada Parker and Kalani Jordan in a triple threat match for the number one contendership to the NXT Women's North American title. Basically meaning that Carmen Petrovich has now become the number one contender and will have an opportunity soon to challenge Stephanie Bakur for the NXT Women's North American Championship. So Ruka and Zarya defeated Metaphor of Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend in a tag team match. In a singles match, Sean Spears with Izzy Dame, Brooks Jensen, and Nico Vance in his corner defeated Channing Lorenzo with D'Angelo family members Adriana Rizzo, Luca Crucifino in his corner. Eddie Thorpe defeated Andre Chase in just under 5 minutes. And the main event saw in a 6-woman tag match NXT Women's Champion Julia teaming with NXT Women's North American Champion Stephanie Vaquer and Jordan Grace to defeat Fatal Influence of Fallon Henley, JC Jane, and Jasmine Nix. As this promises to get into a pretty interesting feud here. Also, a couple other pieces of interesting note last night. Of course, Ricky Starks, now going by the name Ricky Saints, as WWE had him change his name for licensing purposes. Under the name Ricky Saints, he signed with the WWE under a WWE NXT contract, solidifying his presence on the NXT brand. Also, in a continuation of the working agreement between NXT and TNA, TNA X Division champion Moose TNA X Division champion Moose and TNA World Tag Team champions the Hardy Boys both made appearances on last night's NXT. The Hardy Boys came out to answer the challenge from the No Quarter Catch Crew's duo of Miles Bourne and Tavian Heights, a match that is set to take place on next week's NXT. And Moose came out to confront NXT champion Obafemi in what promises to be a very, very good hoss fight between two incredible power athletes here. Moose being, of course, not only the current X Division champion, but being a former TNA World Champion. I believe he's a 2-time TNA World Champion. And Obafemi now, this should prove to be a pretty incredible test for Femi as a main eventer, as he preparing to take on if he does engage in a feud with Moose. So now let's move on to the AEW news. As of course, coming off of their recent trip to Australia, in which of course AEW had Grand Slam, and the Ring of Honor crew had their Global Wars Australia show. So coming back from, there were some interesting things that we, of course, talked about on Monday that we now can look forward to coming up tonight's Dynamite. Some possible storylines for the matches. Matches already signed for tonight's show. In a Revolution International Championship Series match, Roderick Strong will be taking on Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy, who we haven't really heard too much from in the last few weeks. Roderick Strong coming off of a loss, coming off a loss along with his undisputed teammates of Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly. They were, on last week's Dynamite, they were challenging for the World Trios titles against the Death Riders, only to come up short. in a street fight in a match that's been building for weeks here. Big Bill will be taking on Powerhouse Hobbs, as of course following the global wars, after after their loss to Bandito and the Outrunners, Big Bill, Chris Jericho, and Brian Keith of the as I talked about on Monday, they tried to beat down Bandito and Outrunners only for Powerhouse Hobbs to come out and make the save and confront Big Bill. And the main event of the evening set up, at least thus far, in a 6-man tag, the patriarchy of Christian Cage, Chris Sabian, and Nick Wayne with Mother Wayne in their corner will be taking on the group calling themselves the Ops now of Hook, Samoa Joe, and Katsuyori Shibata. So, of course, now Christian Cage still has a contract, open contract for the AEW World Title that he earned a few months ago. So so it's just people are just wondering. As right now, of course, now that Grand Slam has passed, now they're preparing for for March the 9th Revolution, which I believe is taking place here in Southern California in Los Angeles, coming up on March the 9th. So now some other like theories thrown out, in terms of the WWE news earlier. In terms of the WWE news earlier, as part of the reason why there's another reason that was possibly given, the Hardys being on NXT last night. Another theory that's being thrown out there is that the Hardys may be another team that they may be looking to induct into this year's Hall of Fame. Now, that's not official. That's just speculation, mind you. So take that for what it is. Hardys, who along with Edge and Christian and the Dudley Boys, really had a major, were helping the WWE's tag team division back in the early 2000s, 20 years ago. So, the possibility of inducting them into the Hall of Fame, some would argue, is a bit overdue. So of course, there's no. Let's see. The next major event will be a week from this Saturday on the 1st. WWE will be having its Elimination Chamber. In fact, why don't we go ahead and look ahead to some of the upcoming events coming up here in the near future. So, coming up on March the 1st, a week from this Saturday, WWE will be having its Elimination Chamber from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, from the Rogers Center up there. Signed, of course, this past Monday night on Monday's Raw. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn will be taking each other on an unsanctioned match. Now, an unsanctioned match, meaning that, it's unsanctioned. Now, traditionally, it means it's unsanctioned. It means anything goes. I think pinfalls. It's just that basically when you have an unsanctioned match, basically meant that you signed an agreement that the company, the promotion, this case WWE, is not responsible for anything that happens in this match. That's the traditional sense of an unsanctioned match. It's kind of an anything goes type match to hopefully settle feuds. Now, of course, at Elimination Chamber, there are two, one for the men and one for the women. Number one contendership matches for the women's world title and for the WWE and Universal title, as of course, in setting up for the, as of course, as everybody knows, Jey Uso chose to challenge Gunther again for the WWE World Heavyweight title. Charlotte Flair chose to take on Tiffany Stratton for the WWE Women's title. So these matches at Elimination Chamber will be to see who will challenge Rhea Ripley for the Women's World title and Cody Rhodes for the Undisputed title. And all six participants have already been put in the match. So on the women's side, the 6 women who will be competing for the chance to challenge Rhea Ripley for the Women's World title are WWE Women's Tag Team Champions Bianca Belair and Naomi, Bayley, Alexa Bliss, Liv Morgan, and Roxanne Perez of the Judgment Day. Now, in recent weeks, of course, what happened this past Friday on Friday Night SmackDown was Nick Aldis revealed to Bianca Belair and Naomi who put Jade Cargill out of action, and it's believed that, or the suggestion is, it was Liv Morgan and Roxanne Perez, setting up a potential feud there, and potentially setting up, if none of these 4 women win the Elimination Chamber, setting up a possible women's world tag title, women's tag title match, pitting the champions Belair and Naomi against the Judgment Day duo of Morgan and Perez. Now on the men's side, the six men to try to vie for the number one contendership match for the Undisputed title held by Cody Rhodes are CM Punk, John Cena, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Damian Priest, and Logan Paul. Now, there has been some talk here about John Cena's involvement, because while the other 5 individuals that I mentioned all had to qualify, Cena just declared himself for it and was allowed access. So, and considering he's also taking some time off, I don't know if it's to do some filming work or what have you, but this is obviously drawing some heat on him. Some possible resentment from some of the other members, some of the other people who are involved in this. So that's all something to look forward to coming up on March 1st. Now let's go ahead and talk about what's coming up on March 9th for AEW. And looking at Revolution coming up on March 9th to kind of go over what's already been signed. Also talk a little bit about what we could possibly be looking forward to as well. As Revolution will be coming up, as I said, from Los Angeles on Sunday, March the 9th on Thriller TV from the Crypto.com arena. Only 3 matches thus far have been signed. Jon Moxley is set to defend the world title against Cope. Adam Cope, for numerous reasons, will be looking to try to take the title off of Moxley there. In a match that was signed, in the other two matches, which were signed following Grand Slam in Australia, Konosuke Takeshita will be defending the international title against Kenny Omega at Revolution. And in a steel cage match, two former stablemates from United Empire will be renewing their rivalry. Will Ospreay will be taking on Kyle Fletcher in a steel cage match. Now, there's been some talk, too, that should Kenny Omega win the international title, there's some talk that they may be trying to work a program together to where Omega will be taking on Kazuchika Okada to possibly merge or unify the international and continental titles. And some people would argue that those are essentially the same type of titles. Secondary titles, basically. But I guess we'll just wait and see. Now, some other stories that obviously came out over the weekend. There's some talk. There is some people who suggested the idea that maybe Toni Storm and Mariah May have one more match, as they've each won one match apiece, and possibly have Mariah May win the women's world title. I don't necessarily agree with that. You have too many heel champions right now. Not really balanced, but that's just my opinion. And another possible title match that we could see over the next that could get signed in the next couple weeks here for Revolution, possibly, is Mercedes Moné. That's just my theory based on after watching some of the portions highlights of Grand Slam Australia. It could be possible that Mercedes Moné might sign a match to defend the TBS title against Momo Watanabe of Stardom. As I mentioned on Monday, Momo was actually in attendance for, of course, both the AEW and the Ring of Honor show afterwards, as she was also seen on the Global Warfare Ring of Honor show as well. As Momo Watanabe had won the International Women's Cup to basically earn a title shot at any women's title she so chose. So long as I imagine that it's with the companies that are working together, which could mean, of course, AEW, Ring of Honor, CMLL, Rev Pro. So any women's titles. So we could be, in a situation where, Momo was actually congratulating and clapping for Moné's title defense. Moné just shoved the belt in her face, which would make you wonder. Now, of course, Momo also was intended, as we said, was in attendance during the Global Warfare and was in the audience during Athena's Ring of Honor world title defense against Alex Windsor at Global Warfare. Now, Athena, while on her tour of Japan, also defended the Ring of Honor title against Watanabe's stablemate in Hate, Thekla. So again, some more interesting things to possibly look forward to. Stay tuned for Dynamite and Collision in the next couple of weeks to see if any more matches get added to Revolution coming up on Sunday, March the 9th. So now we're coming up on 15 minutes here, so I think it would be a good time now to move on from the wrestling wrap-up to now, with today being Wednesday, February the 19th, 2025, let's go ahead and take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. History! So, 95, 97, 95, 2005, and 2005. All right. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and. So, now we're going to head back to the. So, today. So, let's get to this. First, I'm going to head back 30 years ago. As on this date 30 years ago today, WCW held its its fifth Super Bowl card from the Baltimore Arena in Baltimore, Maryland, on this date back in 1995, 30 years ago today. Main event saw Hulk Hogan retain the WCW World Heavyweight title over Vader by disqualification. Some other big matches that happened included Sting and Randy Savage defeating Avalanche and Big Bubba Rogers. Of course, Avalanche, the former Earthquake in WWE, and Big Bubba Rogers, the former Big Boss Man. Blacktop Bully defeated Dustin Rhodes in a singles match. Harlem Heat retained the WCW World Tag Team titles over the Nasty Boys by disqualification. In the battle of the supposed brothers, Kevin Sullivan defeated Dave Sullivan, and the show opened up with Alex Wright defeating Paul Roma. So 30 years ago today, the fifth Super Bowl from WCW was held on this date back in 1995, 30 years ago today. Now moving ahead to 1997, on this date 28 years ago today, in 1997, the 545th issue of Adventures of Superman went on sale on this date back in 1997. It was, of course, part of the original Superman series from back in 1940 or 1939. Eventually, they did change the name to Adventures of Superman. So it sold for $1.95. It was 32 pages. The story was called Power Crisis, written by Carl Kessel, penciled by Scott Eaton. Jose F. Marzan Jr. did the inking. The lettering was done by Albert Tobias de Guzman, and Glenn Whitmore did the coloring. So the 545th issue of Adventures of Superman went on sale on this date back in 1997, 28 years ago today. Now moving ahead to 2005. On this date in 2005, the final episode of Kenny the Shark aired on Discovery Kids on this date back in 2005. So 20 years ago today, the final episode of Kenny the Shark from Discovery Kids aired on this date. And the series was about an anthropomorphic tiger shark named Kenny, who was tired of being a predator and wanted to live with a suburban family. So the final episode of Discovery Kids, Kenny the Shark, aired on this date back in 2005. And 2005 is just so nice that we're going to hit it twice. As also on this date in 2005, as part of the Kino's Journey franchise from A.C.G.T, the A.C.G.T anime movie Kino's Journey: Life Goes On premiered in Japanese theaters on this date 20 years ago today. So 2005 is just so nice. We're going to hit it twice, as on this date 20 years ago today as well. A.C.G.T. anime movie Kino's Journey Life Goes On premiered in Japanese theaters on this date back in 2005. All right. So, with all that being said, of course, I hope everybody enjoyed the show tonight. We'll of course be back here tomorrow with more niche news. Also, this Sunday, Apex from Apex Comics will be joining me, and we will be looking back, going down comics history lane once more, going back to April of 1940, comics that went on sale on that date. That in this particular case, we'll be focusing in on Street and Smith and United Feature Syndicate. Will be, of course, the main book we'll be focusing in on will be Shadow Comics Volume 1, Issue 4. Among the stories will include, of course, that we'll be reading will include the Shadow, Street and Smith's version of Iron Monroe. Probably be looking at Bill Barnes and Carrie Cashin as well. We'll be also just taking a quick peek at what as the 20th issue of the single series book came out from United Features that month as well. We'll be just looking over that, Robert. Not over the book because the book's currently not available, but at least we'll tell you what was in it, and also, looking over, summarizing some of the stuff that went on in Doc Savage comics. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope you all enjoyed the show. Hope feel free if you missed any portion of the show that you want to go back and take a look at. Feel free to, I'll have I keep these up, so if you want to go back and watch the show again, catch some of the news items that we talked about tonight. Feel free to do so. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.